post-67 occupation is not legitimate. And for pragmatic reasons, I would suggest that the first legal step sort of go along with that point of departure. Canada Park is in the post-1967 occupied territories. Canada Park is not only an obscenity in terms of human values and liberal democratic constitutions. Canada Park is a violation of the official policy of all Western governments and definitely Canadian governments. So if Canada Park is challenged legally before the Canadian Constitutional Court, the chances of winning the argument and divesting the JNF of Canada of its charitable status, denying it its tax exemption, and eventually declaring it an illegal organization in Canada is within our reach. Thank you very much. I anticipate that the main response would not be in court but out of court, ad hominem, in an attempt to smear the motive and the intention of the party that presents the legal action. In court, they have to be much more careful. And again, I draw on the successful experience of defending Jim Allen and Perdition. One of the happiest or most satisfactory moments in this connection was a major article by David Cesarani in the Jewish Chronicle. They lost the case. So David Cesarani writes a major piece in the Jewish Chronicle. The Jewish community should be sufficiently mature in order to accept that there is sufficient ground to criticize Israeli policies and the State of Israel, and that not every criticism of the State of Israel is motivated by anti-Semitism. But it took 10 years to get this. So and throughout these 10 years, there was a major smear campaign.
I want to ask about, you said that there were the apartheid policies in Israel presently, the petty apartheid policies, the obvious ones, weren't apparent, but I just want to bring up Veolia and their bus routes, their segregated bus routes, which I believe are Jewish only, and men on the front of the bus, women on the back of the bus, divided. And also the road system in the West Bank, which is clearly an apartheid structure. I wonder if you could explain those a little more.
I declared an attempt to be particular with my narrative. Apparently I wasn't particular enough. I focused on pre-67 Israel. You are absolutely right. In the post-1967 territories, apartheid is visible.
I believe bus routes are operated within the 48 territories.
The bus route that you refer to is a distinction not between Jew and Arab, but between men and women. Orthodox, that is the primary distinction, the demand of the fundamentalist Jewish constituencies to have in the buses special routes segregating. I am not aware of segregated buses for Jews versus Arabs. I am aware of roads designated for settler traffic against roads and avenues of traffic designated for Palestinians. There, in the post-1967 territories, indeed, apartheid is visible and tangible. It is veiled inside pre-67 Israel in a way it is not veiled in the post-67. And again, that is one element that makes it convenient for mainstream governments to make the false distinction between Canada Park and Saris. There isn't a difference between the settler colonial pattern of the JNF and its complicity with crimes against humanity in Saris or in Canada Park. There is the pragmatic, practical difference, which I think is sufficient in order to start with Canada Park.
Jewish word. I don't think one can confine to the narrow confines of the religion, not because the religion itself changes, it's not unusual.
I want to respond by saying that I welcome the comments. I'm not disputing any of the comments. I regard them as a very helpful supplement to what I presented here. The additional comment to the first comment is that I find the definition I proposed for apartheid extremely useful, especially with reference to legal orientation, namely regulation of racism through acts of parliament. It does not contradict, necessarily at least, the definition you suggest. So, in terms of the orientation I projected in this presentation, going for legal action, preparing for legal action, using taking recourse to law in addition to political intervention, I find my definition useful. In your narrative and addressing your own constituency, overlapping constituency I address, you may find your definition of apartheid more effective. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not disputing that at all. And let 100 flowers bloom. I mean, it's not an either-or situation. I've been in the United Kingdom, as you know, Tony, for the better part of 20 years, and things tend to rub on one's skin if you stay in an environment for 20 years, and it is a rather helpful, quintessentially English intellectual attitude that if you are presented with an either-or equation, you answer a little bit of both. So that's about it.
I have a question.
No, this brother was before you, and then you follow.
Has the evidence for presenting the JF, he's the envoy of the quartet of the Middle East, I mean, on the grounds of ethics or on the grounds of conflict of interest, do you think there's any room for movement?
As you would have surmised through the exchange, there is long-term familiarity between myself and a number of people in this audience, including Tony Greenstein. So I proceed by saying that I suspect Tony will take exception from my answer to your question. And I would really advocate not to designate the JNF as a primary instrument of ethnic cleansing, for instance. To my understanding, ethnic cleansing of Palestine was perpetrated by Zionist militias and by the Israeli army. And to be modest in our narrative and exact in our narrative and accuse the JNF properly with complicity with ethnic cleansing, complicity with crimes against humanity, because if we took your presentation at face value, a JNF advocate would say, rubbish, prove that we ethnic cleansed a single village. No, I cannot easily prove that. Maybe I can eventually prove that, but not readily prove that. What I can readily prove is that you planted trees over ethnically cleansed vendors, that you were complicit with a crime, and that you, rather than challenge or resist that crime. And yes, I would definitely go for Tony Blair and for Gordon Brown, but through the courts. Make them answerable before the court. When I in fact challenge, in this volume you'll see correspondence between myself and the office of the Prime Minister in Gordon Brown's time. All I got was, thank you for your letter, it's recorded. That's all. That's not good enough in court. I'll take the liberty to connect between your question and Tony's comment. Yes, I defined, I resisted being classified as a Jew because I am not an observing Jew, and then I said there's a rainbow of Jewish identities, which is absolutely true. Standard Zionist argument, at least when I was ordinarily resident in the United Kingdom and often a frequent speaker in academic fora, student fora, and other fora, standard argument would go something like that. Do you recognize that there is a Jewish people?